This is an outrage. They are not my children.
Oh my goodness.
I can't believe it.
You know what the funniest part is? I once married that woman. Floyd's mocking voice cut through the glittering rehearsal dinner like a blade. The guests around him burst into laughter, raising their glasses as if cruelty itself was worth toasting. She thought she was important, he sneered, signing his name with a silver pen across a thick ivory envelope. The golden seal shimmered in the chandelier's glow. Tomorrow she'll receive this. An invitation to my wedding. Let her see what real success looks like. His fiancée, Stephanie, leaned against him in a gown of silk and diamonds, but her laugh was nervous, brittle. Darling, isn't that a little cruel? Cruel? Floyd smirked, adjusting his cufflinks. It's mercy. She'll finally understand what she missed out on. While I rise higher, she sinks lower. That is balance. The men at the table slapped the cloth with laughter. A senator's wife leaned forward, pearls gleaming at her neck, whispering, "Show her, Floyd. Teach her the difference between power and weakness." The ivory envelope slid across the table into a servant's hands. Floyd raised his champagne glass, arrogance spilling from his grin. "Deliver it at dawn. Let her tremble when she reads it." Miles away, in a modest apartment, a knock echoed against a worn wooden door. Maria bent to pick up the package left outside. Her fingers brushed the satin ribbon binding it, her chest tightening as she unwrapped the gold seal. The words gleamed back in calligraphy. "Mr. Floyd Harrison requests the honor of your presence at his wedding." Her breath caught. For a heartbeat, her hands trembled, the weight of memories pressing down, betrayal, abandonment, nights alone with nothing but silence and grief. But then her grip steadied, her eyes hardened, her jaw set. She placed the invitation flat on the table, smoothing its edges with deliberate calm. There were no tears, no collapse, only silence. And in that silence, something fierce was born. Floyd thought the trap was his, but the moment Maria's gaze sharpened, the trap had already begun to turn on him. Gasps rippled through the crowd. A sleek black luxury car rolled to a stop at the entrance of the Grand Belmont Hotel, its polished surface gleaming under the flood of flashing cameras. Paparazzi swarmed instantly, shouting, "Who's arriving? A movie star? A senator?" The back door opened, and silence spread like fire. A woman stepped out, graceful, radiant, wrapped in a midnight blue gown that flowed like liquid silk. Every detail screamed power, elegance, triumph. On each side of her, a boy climbed out, dressed in tailored tuxedos, their shoulders squared, their gazes steady. Whispers shot through the terrace. "Who is she? She looks like royalty. Wait, those boys, don't they look like—" The resemblance was undeniable. The same sharp jawline, the same dark eyes. Miniature reflections of the man standing inside, the billionaire who thought he owned this night. On the balcony above, Floyd was in the middle of another boastful laugh, champagne glass lifted high, until his gaze landed on the figures below. The laughter died in his throat. For a moment he didn't breathe. His smile froze, his grip tightening around the glass until it nearly shattered. He leaned forward, squinting, disbelief twisting across his face. No, it couldn't be. Not her. Not here. But it was. Maria, the woman he had discarded. The woman he had mocked as beneath him. She was walking calmly through the hotel's golden entrance, moving with the grace of someone who belonged more than anyone else in that room. And those boys, his eyes darted again. There was no mistaking it. Around him, his friends continued their chatter, unaware of the storm brewing in his chest. "Floyd, what's wrong?" Stephanie whispered at his side, following his stare. When she saw, her smile faltered too. Down below, Maria didn't look up at him. She didn't rush. She didn't stumble. Every step was deliberate, quiet, powerful, as if this was her night, not his. Cameras flashed wildly, reporters leaning forward, the whispers building into a wave. Could that really be her? Those twins! Look at their faces! My God, they're his! Floyd's world tilted. The stage he had built for her humiliation had just become her grand entrance, and she was walking into it with fire in her eyes and his bloodline at her side. Is that her? The question hissed through the crowd like wind through glass. Heads turned, jewels glimmered as women leaned in close, and whispers spread from table to table. She wasn't supposed to show up. Look at her dress. That's couture. And those boys. My God, the resemblance. Maria moved slowly through the grand hotel lobby, her sons on either side. She didn't rush. She didn't shrink. She simply walked, chin lifted, eyes calm, as if she owned the marble floor beneath her heels. Across the terrace, Floyd forced a laugh, louder than before, desperate to drown the murmurs. He raised his glass. "Don't be fooled, friends. She's no one. Just a mistake I made years ago." His voice was sharp, cutting, desperate to rewrite the truth as eyes kept shifting back toward Maria. But Maria didn't respond. She didn't need to. Silence was her weapon, and it spoke louder than his arrogance. A waiter passed, and she took a glass of champagne, fingers steady. Guests stared. Some expected a flinch, a collapse, a bitter glance upward. Instead, she sipped slowly, her gaze sweeping the glittering room as though she had every right to stand among them. And then, a flicker of memory burned at the edges of her mind. Not chandeliers, not laughter, but a one-room apartment. A cracked mirror, her reflection hollowed by exhaustion, her body heavy with pregnancy, stomach empty from skipping meals, 2 jobs, 3 shifts, cleaning all. Shifts at midnight with swollen ankles, the stares of strangers when she couldn't pay rent on time, the sound of her newborn twins crying, her arms too tired to hold them both at once. She remembered sitting on a mattress on the floor, whispering promises through tears. "I will fight for you. I will never give up." The memory stabbed, but instead of breaking her, it steeled her spine. The whispers around her grew sharper. "Do you see her? She looks like she belongs here." No, she looks like more than that. She looks untouchable. But didn't he call her nothing? Maria's lips curved just faintly. She let their words wash over her like background music. She didn't speak. She didn't explain. She didn't need to remind anyone of the truth she carried, because the truth was standing beside her in the form of 2 young boys with eyes sharp as steel, their very existence cutting deeper than any words she could say. On the balcony above, Floyd gripped the railing so tightly his knuckles whitened. His smirk had slipped, his jaw clenched as he caught Stephanie's nervous glance. Down below, Maria adjusted her gown, calm and unshaken. Every movement said the same thing. "I am not who I was. I am more." And the crowd knew it. Their laughter was gone, replaced with an unease that only grew heavier as the night pressed forward. The trap Floyd had laid was shifting, piece by piece, whisper by whisper, and soon he would find himself standing inside it. Wait, did she just say Maria Saavedra? The name sliced through the ballroom like a blade. Heads turned, fans paused mid-wave, and even the music seemed to falter. Near the front table, a tall man in a tailored suit rose to his feet. He was no ordinary guest. His face had been on magazine covers, his business empire known to everyone in the room. He looked directly at Maria with sharp recognition. "I know her," he said, his voice commanding attention. "This woman planned my daughter's wedding. It was flawless, every detail, every moment. She runs Elegancia events, doesn't she?" The crowd erupted in gasps. Maria didn't boast. She didn't correct him. She simply inclined her head with quiet dignity, letting the weight of his words hang in the air. But the man wasn't done. He turned toward the other guests, his tone carrying authority. "I've worked with dozens of event planners. None compare to her. She is a genius in her field." Suddenly the whispers changed. What had been ridicule moments ago transformed into awe. "She owns Elegancia. Isn't that the fastest growing luxury brand in the city? I read about her in a magazine last month." Eyes that once mocked now stared with admiration. Floyd, still frozen on the balcony, tried to regain control. He forced a laugh, too loud, too sharp. "Don't be fooled," he barked. "Anyone can put flowers on a table. She's nothing special." But no one laughed with him. Instead, their silence pressed against him like a wall. Maria lifted her glass, calm and steady, her voice soft yet piercing. "I never needed to prove myself to you, Floyd." She let the words sink in. "My work speaks for itself." And it had. Every nod, every widened eye, every whisper of respect now belonged to her. Stephanie shifted uneasily beside Floyd, her fingers digging into his arm. "They're looking at her, not me," she whispered through clenched teeth. Floyd didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on the twins, his arrogance thinning into panic. Maria's boys stood tall, polite but firm, their presence echoing everything she had built without him. They didn't fidget, didn't shrink from the stares. They looked like heirs, heirs of dignity, not of wealth, and the crowd knew it. The atmosphere shifted completely. Guests leaned forward, no longer whispering about her past, but about her triumph. They wanted to know her story. They wanted to hear her name. Maria set down her glass, her expression unreadable. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile in victory. She sighed. Imply let the silence grow, because silence in this moment spoke louder than any speech. On the balcony above, Floyd's mask cracked. His smirk was gone, replaced with clenched jaws and darting eyes. The power he thought he owned was slipping from his grasp, stolen not with shouting or spectacle, but with quiet, undeniable truth. And then Stephanie's whisper turned sharp, almost panicked. "Floyd, look at the boys. They look just like you." His head snapped toward her. The words punched harder than he expected, because deep down he already knew. Maria hadn't just walked into his wedding with success. She had walked in with proof he could no longer deny. And the crowd was about to see it. "They're his sons." The words shot across the ballroom like thunder. One guest gasped it aloud, and suddenly the entire hall fell into stunned silence. Dozens of eyes swiveled toward the two boys standing proudly beside Maria. The resemblance could no longer be ignored. The sharp jawline, the same piercing eyes, the confident tilt of their chin. They were mirrors of Floyd himself, standing like shadows of the man who had tried to erase them. Flashbulbs from paparazzi cameras exploded, catching every angle, every uncanny detail. "No, that can't be true," Floyd stammered from the balcony, his laugh breaking, hollow and forced. Just her nephews. Look closer. They're nothing to do with me. But his voice wavered, and that crack was all it took. The ally from earlier, the respected businessman, stepped forward, studying the boys with a critical eye. Coincidence? He said flatly. Don't insult our intelligence, Floyd. Blood speaks louder than excuses. His words rang with authority, silencing the murmurs into deadly quiet. Maria's sons exchanged a glance, then stepped forward with polite dignity. One extended his hand to the ally. "Good evening, sir," he said, voice steady, well-mannered beyond his years. The man shook it, impressed. The cameras caught every second. Floyd's face drained of color. The boys didn't need DNA tests. Every person in that ballroom could see it. He was exposed. Maria finally spoke, her tone calm, even tender, but heavy with meaning. "These are my sons. They are my world, and they have thrived without him." A collective gasp swept through the guests. The twins straightened, their silence powerful. They didn't need to shout or accuse. Their very presence was proof of everything Floyd had denied. From the corner, a woman whispered sharply, "All these years, he abandoned them." Another voice hissed back, "And lied about her too." Each whisper was a dagger cutting into Floyd's image. Floyd slammed his glass down so hard, champagne spilled across the tablecloth. "Lies!" he barked. "She's trying to embarrass me in front of all of you." His arrogance rose, desperate, but his trembling hands betrayed him. The ally's eyes hardened. "Embarrass you? No. Truth humiliates all on its own." The crowd erupted, not with laughter this time, but with outrage, murmurs that carried judgment, betrayal, disgust. All the power Floyd once commanded in this room was slipping through his fingers like sand. Maria didn't shout. She didn't even raise her voice. She simply rested her hand on her son's shoulders and let the room drink in the sight of them. Calm, strong, undeniable. Floyd's fiancée tugged on his sleeve, her face pale. "Floyd, tell me it isn't true. Tell me they're not yours." Her voice shook, not with anger, but with fear. Fear of the man she had chosen. Floyd opened his mouth, but no words came out. The silence told the truth louder than denial ever could. Every camera, every eye, every whisper had turned. Not toward him, but toward her, toward Maria, the woman he had called nothing, who now stood as living proof of survival, strength, and dignity. And she wasn't finished. She was nothing when I left her. Floyd's roar cracked through the ballroom like glass shattering on marble. His face flushed red, veins rising in his neck as he slammed both palms on the table. Nothing, and nothing is all she'll ever be. But the words backfired. Gasps rose from the crowd, not in agreement, but in shock. His outburst reeked of desperation. The same guests who once cheered his arrogance now recoiled, exchanging uneasy glances. Maria didn't flinch. She simply rested her hand on her son's shoulders, steady as stone. Her silence pressed harder than any insult. The ally, the respected businessman, stood tall, his voice slicing through Floyd's rage. "Enough! Do you not hear yourself? You call her nothing, yet look around you. Her presence commands this entire room." Applause broke out. Not thunderous, not forced, but sharp and real, like a crack of lightning. Guests began nodding, whispering words that turned into praise. She built all this on her own. She raised those boys without him. She's stronger than he'll ever be. Floyd's fists shook. He tried to laugh it off, but the sound was hollow. "She's playing all of you. Do you know what she was when I left? Pathetic, broke, a burden." Maria finally spoke, her voice calm, steady, devastating. Yes, I was broke, I was alone, I was abandoned with 2 children, and yet here I stand, not because of you, but in spite of you. The words struck harder than a slap. The crowd leaned in, the weight of her truth undeniable. Floyd's fiancée, pale and trembling, whispered fiercely, "You lied to me. You told me she was nothing." She pulled her arm free from his grip, stepping back as if seeing him for the first time. And then Maria's sons stepped forward. One spoke, his young voice firm. "My mother taught us never to hate. She taught us to work hard, to stay strong, to never let cruelty define us." The other finished, looking directly at Floyd. "She gave us everything you refused to give." The ballroom erupted. Applause thundered now, rising higher than the chandeliers, echoing off every golden wall. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment the narrative flipped. Floyd stood in the middle of it all, trembling, powerless. His empire of arrogance had crumbled in a single night, not through lawsuits or scandals, but through truth, dignity, and the children he had denied. Maria didn't gloat. She didn't sneer. She simply bowed her head slightly to the ally, to the guests who now looked at her with respect, not pity. She had won, not with revenge, but with undeniable grace. And Floyd? He was left with nothing but whispers, stares, and the hollow echo of his own humiliation. But Maria wasn't done yet. "You called me nothing." Maria's voice was calm, but it carried through the ballroom like a bell. Every head turned, every whisper died. Her eyes locked on Floyd, steady, unblinking. "Tonight, I showed you what nothing can become." The silence that followed was heavier than any insult Floyd had ever thrown. His jaw clenched, his chest heaved, but no words came out. His empire of arrogance had collapsed, and there was no one left to defend him. Maria took her son's hands. Together they stepped forward, their heads held high. Guests parted like the sea, making way, not for wealth or power, but for dignity. Cameras flashed wildly, capturing every step, every angle, as if history itself was being recorded. The ally, still watching, nodded with respect. "The true measure of greatness," he said firmly, "is not money, but character. And tonight, this woman has proven it." His words sealed the moment. Applause thundered once more, but this time it was not scattered. It was unified, rising like a wave, crashing against Floyd's pride until nothing remained. Floyd stood frozen, humiliated in the very hall where he thought he would reign. His fiancée turned from him, her face pale with shame, and slipped away into the crowd. He didn't chase her. He couldn't. His power had vanished. Maria paused at the door, turning only once to look back at him. Her gaze wasn't cruel, it wasn't vengeful, it was final, a quiet verdict delivered without rage, without bitterness, just truth. Then she walked out, her sons at her side, the applause following her into the night like a crown she had earned with blood, sweat, and grace. Outside, the luxury car waited. Cameras snapped as the door closed behind them. Inside, Maria finally exhaled. Her sons leaned closer, and for the first time that evening, a small, genuine smile touched her lips. She hadn't come for revenge. She had come for dignity, and she had won. Behind her, Floyd remained inside the ballroom, drowning in whispers. His empire cracked, his reputation shattered. For the first time, he was the one left with nothing. And the lesson was clear. Wealth fades, arrogance crumbles, but dignity endures.